Hey guys, here's my plan going forward for this YouTube channel, and this may sound a little nuts, so if you think I'm completely bonkers out of my mind, feel free to let me know. But I've been wondering for a little while what I want to do with this YouTube channel and with my YouTube presence in general, because now I actually have multiple channels. And so I was spending a lot of time on this, mostly for the sake of trying to sell stuff online, trying to make money. And long story short, it hasn't really worked very well for that. I mean, it's worked a little bit, but for the amount of time investment I've put into it, it hasn't been that great. And so what I came up with is that I want to just kind of figure out what are the biggest problems in people's lives and that I can help with, that I can help to solve, and show you how to solve them in the best way that I know how, for any problem that I can get my hands on. And there's no course. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not like I might have an affiliate link to a book on Amazon or something in the description every once in a while, but the point of this is not to make money. The point is, I want to figure out like what are the problems that are affecting the greatest amount of people and in the largest intensity, I guess you'd say, and what can I do about those? And so I started to kind of think through like what are some of the biggest problems that I see that is causing people to have a lower quality of life than they would like to. And so I came up with a bunch of things like poverty and homelessness and sickness and obesity and being unable to find a partner and a whole bunch of stuff like this. And I started looking through, okay, like what is the base of all these? What is the cause of all of these problems? And what I started to notice was it was the same things just kept repeating. Like the same things were at the base of all of these problems that people have. And mental health problems too, right? Like depression and anxiety and jealousy and fear. Like everything had a similar set of just four underlying problems. And so here's what I'm gonna do. And this is the plan as of now. It might change, as plans sometimes do, but the plan is that I'm going to create content to solve all of the four base problems, and then I'm going to create content around every individual problem, every depression or obesity or sickness or whatever, and then have those all point back to the four base content videos, which are all about how to solve the base problems, right? I'll show how the base problem is causing the symptom problem. So let me show you what I came up with as those base problems. And you might have a different opinion, and I'd love to hear in the comments if you think that I'm missing something. But the four base problems, the way that I see it, are number one, lack of knowledge. Number two, lack of hope. Three, lack of empathy. And four, spiritual obsession. So that's it. From what I see, the vast majority of problems that people have come from a combination of these four factors: lack of knowledge, lack of hope, lack of empathy, and or spiritual obsession. Now, I want to make it clear that there's a fifth factor, which is external factors, circumstances that are outside of your control, right? But I'm not going to focus on that because, for one thing, it's outside of your control, right? So it doesn't make sense to focus on it because there's nothing that you can do about it. I mean, in some cases, there's some things that you can do about it. Like, if the external circumstances that your house burns down in a fire, well, maybe you could have put like flame retardant paint, or if you got robbed, maybe you could have had a better security system. There's always things that you can do. But for the most part, those circumstances, at least after they happen, there's nothing you can do about them. But if you are of a healthy mind and if you don't have any of these issues, you can always bounce back from those, right? So if somebody robs you, if your house burns down, you're gonna be in a bad situation for a little while. But if you're of a healthy mind and you have knowledge and you have faith and you have empathy and you don't have spiritual obsession that's holding you back, then you'll be able to rebuild, right? You'll be able to start saving up money and you'll be able to buy a new house eventually, right? So when I'm talking about the symptom problems, I'm looking at things that are more permanent, right? Not things that are temporary, something that happens that's bad to you that you just can't that you can bounce back from in a little bit. So let me give you an example of what I mean by each of these. So let's say the example, the symptom problem, let's say these are the cause problems, and then the problems that people are the most painful, the problems that people are actually worried about are the symptom problems. So let's say one of the symptom problems is poverty. Well, how does that fit in here? Well, poverty might come from a lack of knowledge. Maybe you don't know how to do the things that make money, right? Maybe you don't know how to make money. Maybe you don't know how to do a particular skill that's going to make you money. Lack of knowledge will make you poor, right? Maybe you do know, but you have a lack of hope, right? You don't really believe, like you're in a bad economic situation and you don't really believe that you can get out of it. You believe that you're stuck. And by the way, when I say hope, I mean hope/faith, right? Faith, and let me explain the difference. Hope is a feeling. Hope is the feeling of the possibility of something better in the future. Faith is the belief. Faith is a thought, whereas hope is a feeling. So faith is, I believe that something is going to be better, or at least I believe something can be better, or I believe that if I do this thing, then the future is going to be better, right? And then hope is the feeling that accompanies that thought. It's the feeling that accompanies that belief. And in fact, I like to call it a thought rather than a belief, because a belief seems like something that's hard to control, whereas a thought, well, everybody knows you can think, like you can control your thoughts, at least to some extent. So if you continue to think that it is in my control and it will get better, then you will begin to have that belief. You'll have that faith, and then you'll have the feeling of hope that goes along with it. So anyway, back to the example, poverty can come from a lack of hope, right? So if you believe that you're screwed because the economy is bad, let's say, and by the way, this is often tied to circumstance, right? There's this external circumstance that you believe means that you are doomed. And because of that, you feel a lack of hope. Well, the circumstance never actually means that you're doomed, right? You can always get around that circumstance. There's always a way to overcome it. But if you don't have that belief that you can overcome it, if you think just because the economy is bad, you are going to stay poor, well, then you're not going to want to put the effort into learning or working or starting a business or getting into a new career or whatever it is that you need to actually make money, right? You might even know, you might have the knowledge of how to do it, but if you don't have the faith and the hope that it's going to work, then you're probably not going to follow through, right? And so you're going to stay in that state of poverty. Lack of empathy. I heard a phrase that I thought was good that I don't remember where I heard it, but somebody said that every dollar that you want is in somebody else's pocket, right? So if you want somebody to give you their dollars, whether that's an employer or it's a client or whatever it is, if you want money that is in somebody else's pocket, you need to empathize with them. You need to understand what their wants and their needs and their desires are and find a way to give it to them, right? And you take some money in exchange for them giving it to you, right? So maybe you sell somebody some food, or maybe you work for somebody and to make their life easier in some way, right? You're understanding what people's needs are, and people are paying you to meet those needs. So if you have a lack of empathy, it makes it hard to make money. And then finally, spiritual obsession. And I think I may focus on this quite a lot just because in the American cultural consciousness, we do not understand this really at all. And I've traveled quite a bit. In some other countries, they understand it a lot better than we do. But what spiritual obsession is a spirit that is distracting you or putting bad thoughts in your head or bad feelings so that it makes it that's bringing you down in some way, right? And all of the religions talk about this, and they put different names on it. They might be demons or evil spirits or jinn or just, bad energy. And it's all the same, right? It's entities just like we have on Earth, right? If you have a person who is secretly jealous of you, and whenever you see them, they make little comments to try to bring you down. Well, there are spirits that do exactly the same thing, right? They see you and they don't like you for whatever reason. Maybe they're jealous, maybe you hurt them in some way, maybe they think you hurt them in some way, maybe you hurt somebody that they love in some way, whatever it is, but they want to hurt you and they want to bring you down. Or in some cases, actually, they don't even want to bring you down. Some cases, they're actually well-intentioned, right? And you probably have people like this in your life, just flesh and blood people that they try to cut down your dreams because they don't want to see you get disappointed. Or they try to sabotage your relationships because they don't want to see you get heartbroken, right? So they may even have good intentions, but still the result is that they are bringing you down. And so spiritual obsession, especially when it relates to poverty, is that maybe you know what you have to do, and you have faith or you have hope that if you learn XYZ skill, then you're going to be able to make money and you're going to get out of poverty. Well, you might have a voice in your head that starts saying, well, you're not smart enough to do that. Or you're a bad person, so you don't deserve it, right? Or you're leaving your family behind, or something like voices of thoughts that are not yours, right? We in the Western world tend to think that every thought that comes into our mind is ours, but that's clearly not true if you think about it for a second. How often do you have a thought that comes into your head that you just kind of shocks you? It's like that. I don't believe that, and yet it just came into my head. I don't want to do that, and yet the thought just came into my head, right? We have external influences all of the time that are talking to us. And some people actually hear voices, and some people think they're crazy because they're hearing voices. Other people, it's a little more subtle. They just kind of get an intuition, or they get a thought. And not all of them are bad, by the way, right? There's spiritual forces all around us at all times, and some of them are good and some of them are bad. And it's up to us to distinguish which is which, right? It's the old cartoon where they have the angel on one shoulder and the devil on one shoulder, and they're both speaking in the person's ear. Well, that's actually fairly accurate. We're always living in that state where we have good influences and bad influences that are both trying to pull us in that direction. So we might have thoughts of, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, etc., etc. And so even though we were going to do it, even though we did have hope and faith, well, all of a sudden this spiritual obsession comes and takes it away from us. And I shouldn't say take it away from us, because at the end of the day, it's our choice, right? Nobody can take it away from us. But we allow ourselves to be influenced, and this definitely makes it more difficult. Or it could be just a distraction, right? Like you're finally going to start doing the thing that you've been meaning to do for the last 2 months, and then as soon as you start, then you start having other thoughts like, oh, well, what am I going to have for dinner tonight? Or, oh, there's this other thing that I have to do. Or, you just have all these little distractions. That is oftentimes spiritual obsession. There's somebody that does not want you to do the thing that you're going to do. Or in some cases, it's just a feeling. Like I get this occasionally. I have this feeling of anxiety that comes on me for no reason. Right? I mean, if I was worrying about something, or if I was thinking, oh, what if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I'm humiliated? What if I lose all my money, etc., etc.? Like whenever you have those thoughts, you feel anxiety. That's predictable. But sometimes you're not having any thoughts like that and you feel anxiety. Same thing. You're feeling some outside entity that is around you. And so that's what I'm going to get into a lot, because I think it's so misunderstood, and it really holds people back a lot more than it should. So anyway, if you have that could keep you poor. So that's one example. Same thing with, let's say, obesity, right? Maybe you don't know how to get in shape. Maybe that's the problem. And it could be a combination of these factors, right? It doesn't just have to be one. It could be that you know that you should eat your vegetables and you should work out, but you don't believe, you don't have the faith, you don't have the hope that if you do that, it's actually going to work, right? So why are you going to sacrifice the candy bars that you like or whatever in order to, if you don't believe that it's actually going to have a benefit for you? Lack of empathy that doesn't apply in this case. And spiritual obsession, right? So the feelings tell you, and this is something with addictions in general or cravings, that you'll have this feeling of, oh, I really want that candy bar, or I really want that cigarette, and that's actually a spiritual force that's pushing you towards that. Now, usually it's not only a spiritual force, right? There's some level of affinity there that you already wanted that candy bar, but then because you have that, then that attracts a spiritual entity that will push you further towards wanting that candy bar. So it makes the craving stronger. So I hope that makes sense, and I'd love to hear your feedback. If you think that I'm missing something, if you think I'm missing, and by the way, there's intermediate steps too, right? Like there's fear, for example. Like I don't do the thing because I'm afraid. Well, think about, why am I afraid? Well, fear comes from lack of hope, lack of faith, right? Or maybe I'm lazy, maybe I'm not motivated. Well, again, where does the motivation come from? Like, we're trying to get to the bottom of this. And from what I can see, motivation comes from, again, lack of hope or lack of faith. Like, I don't believe that it's going to work. Or in some cases, lack of knowledge, right? I don't know where to start. How am I going to be motivated if I don't even know where to start? So again, like if you have any other ideas, if you have things that maybe I'm missing here, then I would love to hear them. But this is my plan for the foreseeable future. And so I hope you like it. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And of course, subscribe if you haven't already, if this sounds at all interesting to you, and stay tuned.